Hello, and welcome to this video where we will be speaking on the topic of angels. Let me begin by stating that Parade Magazine is a weekly publication that's delivered in the USA to a very large number of families every week with their Sunday newspaper. On January 5th, 1986, this magazine published an article titled "The Best and Worst of Everything." The article was a review of the year 1985. Within that article, under the heading Best International News, was the following report. 6 Soviet cosmonauts said they witnessed the most awe-inspiring spectacle ever encountered in space. A band of glowing angels with wings as big as jumbo jets. According to Weekly World News, cosmonauts Vladimir Solovev, Oleg Atkov, and Leonid Kazem said they first saw the celestial beings last July, that would be July 1985, during their 155th day aboard the orbiting Salyut 7 space station. What we saw, they said, were 7 giant figures in the form of humans, but with wings and mist-like halos, as in the classic depiction of angels. Their faces were round with cherubic smiles. 12 days later, the figures returned and were seen by 3 other Russian scientists, including woman cosmonauts Svetlana Savitskaya. They were smiling, she said, as though they shared in a glorious secret. It is indeed sad that such a wonderful event was not in the headlines of the news in every newspaper around the world, and certainly on the television news. Was it absent from the headlines of the world because we, the people of the world, have become so cynical? Perhaps it was because the angels were seen only by Russian cosmonauts, and no one else at that time wanted to give the Russians credit for being the ones chosen to see such an important event. Perhaps the news media felt that no one would believe it, and that they would be ridiculed for printing the story. If any one or more of these possible reasons are correct, then it is a sad commentary on our times. There are angels, of course. They exist as beings on a higher level plane, meaning a higher frequency of existence than the physical plane on which we live. There are a number of levels of angelic existence, including angels, archangels, cherubim, and seraphim. We see them represented almost everywhere in one art form or another. Beings of a spiritual nature have been written about in literature for many years. As an example of a similar phenomenon, beginning for most part in the decade of the 60s, but also in subsequent years, we began to see many depictions of the unicorn. This was brought about partly because of the changeover from one age, Pisces, or some call it Pisces, to another, the age of Aquarius, and the closeness in time of events that were then a number of years away, but were related nevertheless to the changeover, as certain cycles began to close and others began to open. I'm speaking of cosmic cycles. As time passed, some of these events were to accompany that changeover as it took place. There are also other factors that were involved, meaning karmic factors and so on. And a significant number of those events have now already begun and are, of course, affecting the entire planet. Returning, however, to the subject of the phenomenon we were discussing, it might also be interesting as a side note to be aware that the unicorn is considered by some to be a symbolic representation of the universal Christ. As previously stated, there has been and still is a great interest in angels and in depictions of angelic beings, both in pictures and in figurines, as well as in other media, just as it was for unicorns. These things are another important sign of the times. They are inspired by higher positive forces to help prepare our planet and those of us who live on it for the changes to our world which have been touched upon in other statements made in this series of videos. Many of these changes, as indicated above, have already begun. It is very likely that you've heard the term guardian angel in reference to spiritual beings whose work it is to watch over and protect human beings. There have also been numerous references to guardian angels in the literature of the world. There's a beautiful song about guardian angels that was sung by Mario Lanza on an album of Christmas songs that he recorded many years ago. That is only one example of many. Perhaps you can think of others. Some people believe that the term guardian angels came from the fact that we all have two unseen spirit guides, one at each shoulder, to guide us as they see need. This, of course, does not exclude their guiding us in such a way as to protect us from danger also. Because of this, some persons believe that these beings may have been the origin for the name guardian angels. There are some who are knowledgeable about such things, however, who say that these particular spirit guides are actually unseen ascended masters generally rather than angels, and that they look after us during our time here. Others seem to believe that the guardian angels are separate and distinct from the two guides at our shoulders. Knowing which point of view is correct is not nearly as important as the knowledge that we are watched over by higher positive forces. Of course, this doesn't mean that no harm will ever come to us. There are things that we at a higher level choose to endure in order to learn at the conscious physical level the associated lessons. These higher beings will generally not interfere with those decisions made by our higher self at that level. As earlier indicated, there are a number of depictions of angels in literature and other art forms, including television and motion pictures. One that had become very popular over the years is the motion picture It's a Wonderful Life, a film often shown during the holiday season in the United States as a calendar year draws near to a close. As each calendar year draws near to a close. In another film made many years ago, one of the more beautiful scenes depicting an angel was near the end of the motion picture called Date with an Angel, when the angel swooped down in a burst of brilliant white light to protect her charge, a young man who was being put upon by other characters in the film. The early television series Highway to Heaven told a number of beautiful and inspiring stories about an angel doing work on earth. And a somewhat later television series, Touched by an Angel, told a number of such stories also. If angels can actually appear in human form, perhaps we should all take care. We may be entertaining angels unaware. When you were hearing at the beginning of this video about the article from Parade magazine that was quoted here, did you then wonder, or have you since wondered, about the glorious secret that the angels seem to share, which caused them to smile as they did? The impression received by the cosmonauts that the angels shared a glorious secret was certainly not by accident. Such an important idea would not be left to chance by beings who showed themselves for a very important purpose. They wanted to be seen so that the people of the earth would know that all is well in the world, or the spiritual plane of spirit beings. Spiritual beings, that God is alive and well, of course, thank you, if there were ever any here who might have had their doubts about that fact. And finally, in case we didn't get the message from the motion picture with the title 2010, something's going to happen. Something wonderful that we of this planet will not want to miss. It has been stated in other videos in this series about the light at the end of the tunnel which we are all now in. A more than significant part of what constitutes that light is the presence and the future benefits of the work of the universal Christ in a state of oneness with the young person who will later become recognized and acknowledged as the master of the Aquarian age, the Christ, now living and maturing on this planet while preparing for the work that lies ahead for this very special person. This work, which will lay the future spiritual foundation for the people of this planet, this is work that will do that. Work that will help the people of the world change their personal priorities from those of seeking and holding wealth, power, and material things, to focus instead on the real importance that God deserves in our lives, and to focus also on bringing about at all levels a state of international brotherhood and sisterhood among humankind, a state of compassion where the well-being of our brothers and sisters, our fellow human beings, takes priority over the acquisition of wealth and power and the wielding of these things. Do you suppose that any one or more of these things just might be part of the glorious secret that the angels shared? You know, I wouldn't be a bit surprised. In fact, the knowledge of the presence of the universal Christ, once more in human form on the earth, would be enough to make me smile too. How about you? I'll leave you with that thought to consider. Thank you for watching, and I now invite you to watch the next video on the subject of the universal Christ. Again, thank you.